We've got an unpopular opinion on a subject that I truly believe in. It's about running shoes. The more expensive your running shoes, the more damage you could possibly be doing to your body. Not because the shoes are bad, but because they're really good. And that makes them good at hiding your technique problems. I went and I pulled the actual research on this, and what I found backed up everything I've been thinking for the last few years and paying attention to. So, are we talking about this? For me, I love to pay attention to people when I'm out and about, and I started noticing everyone wearing these really expensive like hookahs or all these brands, Brooks, and I'm like, wow, those are for running. And then I look at the person, and they're usually like slouched over, or they just look like something is causing them pain. So it got me researching, like, it's not a coincidence to me that these people are hurting and they all have the same kind of shoes on. So I just start thinking at first, and I think about running shoes and what they're for and how they have 3 inches of cushion. And we think about the foot and what it's supposed to do, its main job, and it just doesn't line up. If you're wearing them to walk around in all day, when do you find stability? If there's a lot of cushion, your feet might feel nice and soft, but how does your knee, your ankle, your hip, your lower back, how does that like being unstable? And I don't think it does. And there was recently, some of you may know, some of you might not, but I've had one of the worst back injuries of my life. I could not even sit without pain. And we went to RCVR and seen Keegan. Great guy, really smart. He's probably forgotten more than I'll ever know. And he gave me some drills and stuff with that. And he gave me great news about how the pain is worse than the injury. So I loved hearing that. And I started doing his drills. And I was getting slightly better, but not really. I was walking around in my shoes and in my slides, and it wasn't until I kicked all those off and started walking barefoot as much as possible that my back started healing. And that got me thinking and started to do some research. So, kicking the shoes off, my feet found that more stability. They weren't hurting or anything like that, but within days, I could tell a difference. So that was nice, and that's what got me even more down this rabbit hole of starting to see if running shoes are good. And I, have the privilege of working at a CrossFit, especially CrossFit Fiend, who has its own run club led by head coach Mike, and they're crushing it. So I see a lot of runners. I'm not one personally, but I do have some runner shoes. And, you know, when my back started feeling good, I threw my shoes on, running shoes. I'm going running, and I went on a zone 2 cardio type run. And for the next 3 days, my back felt like it was broken again. So, of course, we slowed down working out, started doing the drills that RCVR gave us and all that again, kicking the shoes off as much as possible, and the back got better. Well, I recently went on a run, my back's feeling good, and I didn't put my shoes on and did the exact same zone 2 run for 30 minutes, no back pain. Am I saying it's the shoes? Absolutely not. What I'm trying, and I hope everybody understands, is that the shoes are great, but don't buy them if you take off running and something hurts. Don't try and fix that with equipment, whether that be knee sleeves or more expensive cushioned running shoes. more or less figure out why. Because we are built to run, and we're built to run long distance. So it's a technique issue if something is hurting. If your knee hurts after you run, you might be striking the ground wrong. If your heel is striking first, you're putting the brakes on every time. And while a shoe might save your foot from that heavy strike all the time, it's not going to make you run better. And that impact is going to work its way up the joints. And that's where you're going to start really feeling the effect of those expensive shoes. So we've got some studies here. The big one, the first thing I found, Harvard professor Daniel Lieberman, the most cited running researcher in history, stated plainly, not a single paper has ever shown that modern running shoes reduce injury rates. 50 years of cushioning technology with zero proof. So what does that tell us right there? They're not helping prevent injuries. That's as plain and simple. So if something's hurting, buying a pair of shoes isn't going to prevent that from happening. Study 2 that I found, cushioning the thicker actually makes it worse. A 2018 study in Scientific Reports found that maximalist shoes, Hoka-style thick soles, increase impact loading compared to regular shoes. That foam does not absorb the force. It moves it from your feet up to your knees and hips. And when those receive it, it's not a good time. Your feet might hurt, but if you've ever had a hip injury or your knees hurting, you know that it's no fun. Life is not fun to deal with a hip or a knee injury. And then the third study on the heel strike that we talked about earlier, heel strike versus forefoot-strike. I don't know how to say his name, but Dowd and Lieberman in 2012 looked at collegiate runners. Heel strikers had twice the repetitive stress injury rate of forefoot strikers. Same athlete, same distance, same surface, only difference was where they were landing on their foot. So if we're reaching out and landing on our heel first, that's what we need to fix, not buy shoes to make it where our heel doesn't hurt while we run. And then the last study, the fix is proven. American Journal of Sports Medicine in 2018, 320 runners, randomized control trials, half did 2 weeks of gait retaining, half did nothing. Over the next 12 months, the retraining group had a 62% lower injury rate. 2 weeks of learning to run correctly had a 62% lower injury rate. 2 weeks is nothing in the grand scheme of training for a marathon or even a half marathon or just being a runner in general. So I'm not saying don't get the shoes. The shoes are great for what they are, but work on your technique and become a better runner first. And maybe we need to kick those expensive shoes off and get some of those zero shoes to learn this technique so we get more feedback from our feet on where we're landing. If we have all that cushion, you might think that you're landing right, but you're not. You're simply just having a nice cushioned landing. So keep that in mind, these studies. So think of your feet as these sensors, and they give us so much information. And the thick foam cuts that signal off. Your brain stops getting feedback, stop making corrections in form because it's soft. And you're not going to feel it in your knees and hips until later. Heel striking, every step you're putting the brakes on. That is not good for running. You need to kind of glide when you run. But also heel striking, while it's bad for your marathon time, it's even worse for your joints. Cushioned shoes will actually be worse because if your form's off, these shoes will allow you to run for miles and miles. Whereas if you had on just some normal training shoes, you might make it a mile in and your heel starts hurting because you're heel striking, but at least you stopped before you caused any major injuries up the body in the joints. So most people, I'm not saying it's a shoe problem and just burn your shoes, but most people don't treat running as a skill and they never work on that technique. They just mask it with better shoes. So what I'm saying is stop throwing your money at equipment and throw it at a coach, or get on YouTube, study how to run better. Knee sleeves, compression gear, expensive shoes, insoles, all these things are just masking your symptoms. Symptoms or pain is good. It is feedback that we can use. Nobody in golf, if they can't even hit the ball, would go buy a new club. They would, well, some people might, but I would recommend taking a lesson, learning how to hit it so you can maximize the gear you have. Don't get it wrong. While running, like, it is a baseline, it's a skill. And moving right is always a skill, and you should treat running just like anything else. Learn how to run better and better. The best investment you can make with a skill is always going to be a coach. A coach sees things you don't see, they understand things that you may not understand, and just simply being able to help. Tiger Woods was the greatest golfer of all time, and he never didn't have a coach. So take those 2 weeks and retrain how you run and cut injuries by 62% without ever buying a new pair of expensive running shoes. So what do we do instead of going and buying a new pair of shoes? We definitely don't throw the shoes we already have away, but we can start at home or anytime we can by kicking everything off and walking around barefoot and letting your feet feel the ground. We can build the foot first. Intrinsic foot muscles need time to get strong, just like your biceps or your back muscles. So kicking those shoes off and feeling that can be a really big help. From there, let's learn the skill of running. Midfoot or forefoot strikes reduce overstriding and help you run faster. So lift your knee and try and strike directly under your body on the mid or forefoot. Get yourself a coach if you can't figure this out. Everybody always, I've had people ask me, like, you're a fitness coach and you hire another coach? Yes. Coach Mike's going to see what I don't see. No matter what you do, who you are, having a coach is always going to be the biggest bang for your buck, if you ask me. So learn the technique, get the right equipment, and watch your results just skyrocket. But equipment alone without technique, it's an expensive way to stay injured. So if you're wondering where to get a coach, you can always come to CrossFit Fiend. I believe I've got the best coaches and all of that. But here's my closing thing. 2 of the worst things humans ever invented for our health are shoes and chairs. And we take those at a very young age and say, get your shoes on and sit down, that's where you're going to work. We made sitting comfortable, which was bad for our hips. We made standing feel soft, which took away important feedback that we need for our body to stay healthy, for us to move right. And then we pair them both together and we expect our hips to make it. Nah. So, the most expensive shoe you can buy cannot teach you how to run better. A coach can. Your technique can get better. Feedback is always good, whether it's from your feet or from a coach or from other runners, but always be searching feedback. If your knees hurt, your back aches, your hips are always tight, and you're running or walking in thick sole shoes, the answer is probably not more shoes or anything like that, but it's probably kick it off. Kick off the shoes. Get to the basics. Feel the ground. Find some stability. The answer to fixing most injuries is always going to be better movement. CrossFit Fiend and its coaches can give you just that. So if you're interested, hit us up. We would love to have you and love to coach you. Other than that, you guys stay rad.
The sun